Hey, I'm Ross Blaising with ARC Realty, and this is Market Movers. I've been working in real estate for a little over 10 years now, and I primarily do residential real estate in the greater Birmingham area, really anywhere from downtown to Hoover and maybe a little south of that sometimes, and primarily in residential real estate, sometimes small multifamily things as well. I think that my approach to helping buyers and sellers is going to vary greatly depending on who the person is. If you're helping a first-time home buyer that lives in a state, it's going to look really different than if you're helping somebody that lives out of state and is, has very specific criteria that they're looking for. And so I actually think that's a strength of mine and something to look for in a realtor probably is someone who's able to sit down with you and kind of have all the tools in their tool belt to, help you craft an approach that's going to work for you instead of just having, a process that they stick to and trying to cram into that. Things that are important in a realtor, I would say number one, being really immersed in the market that you're working in. And I think, especially in times when things are competitive, it's really helpful to have a realtor that has a good network with other realtors and sort of knows who they're working with and has a good reputation. I think that's something a lot of people don't take into account, but realtors like working with people that they know and they know are going to do a good job as opposed to, rolling the dice on somebody and having to kind of pick up the slack when the rules are not be doing what they're supposed to. Especially with clients that are really active at that given time, I try to be I try to have a pretty hands-on approach. And so clients that are actively looking to buy or we have listed, I will talk to them at least once a day. And as far as the means of communication, really whatever works best for the client, in fact, email, phone calls, FaceTime, whatever they need. Um, but yeah, I definitely try and have a really hands-on approach and do those kind of whole contact. And I have an assistant that works with me as well. And so if there are times where I am not around, clients always have somebody that they can reach out to. And I think that's definitely really important to us. Most clients are good about respecting our time as well and not, calling us at 3 o'clock at night and things unless it's urgent. But of course, there are times where stuff needs to get done and hours there, little convenient, and that's okay. It's part of the job. That's what I was saying earlier about being really immersed in the market and knowing what realtors that you're working with and being a lawyer with that market that you're working in. Um, we recently had one under contract in the Hoover area, in an area that's very competitive, and I had multiple offers on it. And by really figuring out what was important to the seller and making the seller, we were on the buying side, and by making the seller feel comfortable that we were going to get to the closing table, without issues and being able to alleviate some of our contingencies prior to letting an offer. We were actually able to get in our contract level of price, which is sort of rare when there's several offers. So, okay, the number one way that I stay informed is just by being in the market every day. I think that's really the best way to stay informed, especially on a local level. Obviously, if you're local like national trends and things like that, I try to uh, stay on top of those things as well. Secondary to just being in the market, I kind of nerd out on statistics and all getting it all else seen. See how quickly things are selling in certain areas and what percent over, asking price they're selling and does that compare to previous years. And so I like to get in the MLS and try to kind of stay on top of it from that sample as well. There are definitely things in our marketing strategy that are part of our process that we do, like on the listings, on every listing, for example, making sure that pretty much any website that has a list for sale or full list of properties can be there. We have a very robust social media influence, and then outside of those kind of things, though, it's really back to kind of figuring out exactly what the particular seller needs. Like, our marketing plan is going to look very different for someone who has a house under contract in another state and has to close in 45 days versus someone who doesn't really necessarily have a timeline and, just really wants to make sure that they're getting top dollar for their house. So I think it comes back to, again, having all the tools in your tool belt and being able to craft a plan that fits your seller's needs for that particular case. Figuring out the list price for something is for me sort of twofold. I think number one, when you're in the market every day and you're kind of, submersed in that market, you get a really good idea of what things are worth and what's important to people in that particular market. So it's really easy to have to have your finger on the pulse, in that sense. So I feel like most of the times I can walk through a property and be very, have a really close ballpark of what the property's worth. And then from there, I like to get the MLS and see if that is backed up by the statistical data. And looking at comps and price per square foot and those things. Um, I think another important thing to look for in realtors is someone, like I said, that knows what's important to buyers and sellers in that particular market. How do you quantify a steep driveway or a smaller backyard versus a bigger backyard? So being able to look beyond just price per square foot and figuring out what's unique to that property and how to quantify it. And I think the only way that you can really do that is by being in that market day in and day out. To make sure the closing process is smooth, I kind of reached a point a couple years ago where I didn't feel like I was able to get to all of my clients in a timely manner, without some help. And so I use a transaction coordinator that a lot of people at ARC use. Robert Kenmore and Stacy works with them as well. And so from the time you go to contract to the time we get to the closing table, they're involved in making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and the deadlines are being met and things like that. And then I also have an assistant who helps me, kind of stay on top of everything. So between the three of us, I think we do a pretty good job of just making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and all the deadlines being hit. The negotiations are different for every deal. And so, if it's we're on the buying side and there's a property that has a handful of offers, negotiations are going to look really different than, um, something that's selling market for 150 days and, maybe we're trying to get it for a lower price. So I think knowing the market and again having all the tools in your tool belt to know what negotiation strategy is going to be best for that particular situation is key. And I will say I think something that I do consistently with every deal, whether on the buying side or the selling side, is trying to make sure that the other party feels really comfortable with us. And so if we're on the buying side, for example, I want the listing agent and the seller to know as much as they can about my client and about me and how we operate, and that we're going to be easy to work with and fair. And I think having that reputation and being able to convey that helps with the negotiation process, regardless of sort of what your goals are.